Every minute, 10-year-old Elijah glances at the clock, knowing that his sleeping time is drawing near. Ever since a few nights ago when the power went out due to a storm, the fear of darkness kept him awake throughout the night. He reluctantly switches on the large reading lamp next to his chest of drawers. For the past few nights, he had left it on to help combat his fear. Scattered around the room are several other lamps, but he prefers this one as it's the brightest. With his favorite plush toy, Max, in hand, he meticulously inspects under the bed for anything suspicious. Satisfied, he places the toy on his bed and covers himself with blankets. As he exits the room, he looks at the clock and sighs, realizing it's time for sleep. He turns off the light in his bedroom, leaving only the warm glow from the lamp. "Don't forget to brush your teeth," his father calls out as he passes by Elijah's door. "When you finish, I have a surprise for you." Hesitant, Elijah heads towards the bathroom to clean his teeth. Afterward, he washes his hands and runs them through his thick, tangled hair. Peering out of the bathroom, he hurries down the hallway toward his room. He rushes into his room and jumps onto his comfortable bed. His tiny hands clutch the blanket, ensuring his feet remain securely covered and not dangling from the edge of the mattress. "There we go," his father says with a warm smile sitting on the bedside. "You said there's a surprise for me?" asks Elijah. "Yes," replies his father, pulling out a small nightlight shaped like a colorful cartoon bug from his pocket. "This nightlight will help you fall asleep. When I was your age, I slept with one too. I'll place it here, by the door, so it lights up the entire room. That way, before going to sleep, you won't need to keep so many lamps lit up," explains his father as he approaches the chest of drawers to turn off the main lamp. "Are you sure this will work?" questions Elijah, snatching the nightlight bug from his father's hands. Examining its multicolored body closely, his fingers trace over the whimsical face of the bug, calming his anxiety with its gentle gaze. He returns the nightlight to his father and burrows beneath the safety of his blanket. "Good night, son," his father says softly, placing a comforting kiss on Elijah's forehead. He activates the nightlight by the door and reassures him, "You don't have to worry about anything." He begins closing the door, but not until he adds, "Sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite." As the bedroom door closes, Elijah fixates on the soft glow emanating from the nightlight. The little boy is both captivated and slightly disturbed by the twinkling light coming from the miniature creature. In the dark, the silhouette of the multicolored bug stretches across the room. His imagination takes hold, conjuring up ghostly images of the creature crawling along the walls. The longer he stares at the shadows, the more they begin to frighten him. He considers jumping up to switch off the nightlight, but his fear of the dark wins out. Elijah tries ignoring his imagination and decides to attempt falling asleep with his new nightlight companion. Closing his eyes and clearing his mind, thoughts of creepy crawlies start creeping back into his consciousness. A slight shiver runs down his spine at the mere thought of tiny creatures lurking beside him in the darkness. He quickly brushes away these feelings and pulls the blanket over his head. The constant hum of the ceiling fan, combined with the gentle buzz of the nightlight, gradually lulls the child into slumber. Within the cozy atmosphere of his room, he drifts off, feeling safe thanks to the warmth of his blankets and beloved stuffed animal Max. Several hours pass, and Elijah starts tossing and turning in bed. His eyes slowly open as he scans the room and notices the neon glow of the alarm clock marking midnight. Lying in bed, he ponders what might have woken him from his sleep, suspecting perhaps it was a nightmare brought on by his overactive imagination. Yet, as he strains to remember, the details fade away into obscurity. Unable to fall back asleep, he sits up, allowing his deep brown eyes to adjust to the darkness of the room. He carefully examines the space around him and eventually focuses on the glowing nightlight. Minutes later, an unfamiliar scratching sound echoes through the silence of the room. Quickly, Elijah leaps out of bed, letting his eyes grow accustomed to the dimness. He scrutinizes every corner of the room until settling his gaze upon the nightlight. More scratches pierce the quietude, seemingly originating from behind the small device. Desperate for answers, he rummages through the dresser drawer and retrieves a flashlight. Switching it on, he shines the beam around the room, revealing nothing out of the ordinary. The scratching continues, growing louder and closer. Without hesitation, he taps the flashlight against the nightlight. Instantly, a brilliant beam illuminates the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Anticipating the arrival of a monstrous figure towering above him, he surveys the area, finding no sign of danger. However, the flashlight flickered erratically, filling him with dread. Tapping the flashlight again, it flashes intermittently before dying completely. Determined, Elijah continues manipulating the flashlight, hoping to dispel the ominous presence. Each tap produces inconsistent results, sometimes a brief burst of light, others none at all. Frustration mounts within him as the strange noise grows louder and more persistent. Focusing intently on the nightlight and its elusive shadow, he waits, heart pounding in his chest. The longer he gazes, the clearer the image becomes, revealing a tiny creature skittering along the edge of his room. Fascinated yet terrified, Elijah remains transfixed, unable to look away from the enchanting spectacle unfolding before him. The sinister silhouette seems to come alive, stretching across the entire room and reaching out towards Elijah. Long and peculiar claws creep closer along the walls, determined to find their way to the safety of the boy's bed. As if born from a nightmare, Elijah watches in fear as the shadow grows larger with each step towards him. Trembling with fright, the young boy grabs hold of his cherished stuffed animal, Max, and swiftly hides beneath the blankets. Clutching Max tightly, he settles down, pressing his knees to his chest, wrapping himself safely in the protective coverings. Once the flashlight flickers back to life, he senses an abrupt heaviness upon his bed. Panicking, Elijah directs the beam of light towards the edge of the bed. Strange sounds issue forth as the mattress compresses, indicating that something weighs down upon the blankets, climbing the bed. Distancing himself mentally, Elijah's thoughts race when he realizes how close the entity is. Pressed against the wall, he cannot move. Feeling the impending weight of a large being approach his bed, he acts quickly, throwing the blanket over the creature's head and rolling off the bed. Falling hard onto the carpet, he instantly seeks shelter under the bed, holding the flashlight firmly in his small hands. Beneath the bed, Elijah can hear the heavy breathing of the creature above him. Unable to move, he stares anxiously at the switch in the distant corner of the room. If only he could reach it, perhaps he might free himself from this horrific experience. Sweeping the flashlight around the room, he discovers nothing. Suddenly, the disembodied head of Max soars through the air, scattering stuffing all about the room like raindrops. The toy's detached head lands gently just a few feet away from where Elijah lies. Quaking, overwhelmed by this bizarre turn of events, Elijah bites down on his hand to suppress a scream. Peering cautiously over the edge of the bed, he witnesses the creature's long, dark, spindly legs descending from the shadows. Preparing to attack, they land on the floor with a hollow thump. Frantic, Elijah observes the creature circling the bed, seeking its prey. Swiftly extinguishing the flashlight, he rolls away from it, hoping to confuse the creature. Held captive by fear, he waits, his terrified gaze never leaving the creature. For what seemed like hours, the two remained locked in a tense standoff. Overcome with shock, Elijah rapidly covers his mouth to keep from screaming. Turning just in time, he sees black, elongated claws emerge from the darkness. The monstrous claws fall to the floor, ready to strike. Terrified, Elijah turns off the flashlight and rolls away from it, hoping to distract the creature. Holding his breath, he waits, tears streaming down his face as he keeps his frightened gaze fixed on the monster. Circling the bed, the creature hunts, trying to locate its prey. The flashlight rolls aimlessly and comes to rest against the side of the dresser. The creature approaches the noise and crushes the fragile bulb with its powerful jaws. A tiny gasp escapes Elijah's lips, shattering the silence of the room. The creature snarls and lunges at the child. Elijah screams in terror as the nightmarish beast attempts to force its body underneath the bed. Startled, the frightened little boy manages to escape his hiding place and leaps towards the door, where the switch is located next to the alarm clock. However, his unsteady legs falter as the creature charges at him with razor-sharp claws. Elijah falls to the floor, tripping over his own feet as the menacing creature advances. It snarls and lunges again, coming dangerously close to the terrified boy. He lets out a blood-curdling cry and wildly swipes at the creature's head. The black monster growls in response, giving Elijah enough time to get back on his feet. His sharp, blade-like fangs burst forth, ripping apart the lower half of Elijah's pajama pants and piercing his delicate flesh. Pain shoots through him instantaneously, piercing every fiber of his tiny body, causing him to trip. Quickly regaining balance due to the intense sensation of pain in his leg, Elijah makes a beeline for the switch which now lay within mere feet of him. With determination, he launches forward, arms extended, as if reaching for a faraway shining star in the night sky. The creature lurches forward, narrowly missing his foot. In that split second, the tip of Elijah's fingers barely managed to flick the switch. A cascade of light floods the room, illuminating every nook and cranny, banishing the ominous shadows and any creatures lurking within them. Ilias collapses onto the ground, panting in relief, knowing that the terrifying beast had been vanquished. Wiping away his tears, he struggles to pull the alarm clock from its resting place. Making his way halfway across the room, he rebounds off the wall and lands beside his bed. The vibrant eyes of the plush creature fade and disappear, bringing an end to Elijah's nightmare. Several minutes pass before the brave little boy finally decides to rise and approach the alarm clock. Shooting bolts of pain up his leg, he looks down and notices a large vertical gash on his nightgown, making it flap erratically with each step he takes. Upon glimpsing a small patch of blood near his bed, he grabs the bright yellow nightlight and carries it to his parents' bedroom. Walking down the corridor, his eyes gleam with laser-like intensity. He raps softly on the door and waits patiently. When his father opens the door and recoils in surprise at finding his son standing there silently, Elijah passes him without uttering a word and plugs in the nightlight by the doorway. With a perplexed expression, his father asks, "Is everything all right?" His question was met with a radiant smile from Elijah, a smile born from triumph and relief. The shadows that haunted him and tormented his imagination no longer existed. Though unsure whether the creature was truly real or merely a manifestation of his fears, the courageous boy stood tall and fierce. He knew that he had discovered within himself newfound strength and bravery that would help him confront his fears. With a victorious nod, Elijah confidently heads back to his bedroom. Before closing the door behind him, he smiles once more and says, "Good night, Dad. Don't let the bogeyman bite."